All right, I have a question up on the screen, Jake. It's the what do you think of Australia's relationship with China? So people can leave comments, and we might be able to pretend like we know the answers to these things.
Yep. I can pretend a lot of things.
So, yes. Well, you don't have
One
to
of my
pretend.
best skills.
You don't have to pretend to look good, Jake, because you look great.
Hey,
Hey,
thanks. It's actually, I think it's just the color.
you look.
It's the color of the polo.
I think it is your color. Peach.
Peach, yeah, exactly. Salmon.
No, I'm calling you Peach.
Oh, like Princess Peach from Mario Brothers.
All right. Welcome to the pouch. We are live. We already have a thumbs up. I presume that's someone that I know, but you never know. You never know. Someone might be excited about it.
Might be someone that you don't know.
No, that's right. It might be a mysterious person.
Might be somebody from the mysterious country of Latvia.
Mysterious like her, I want to get close to you. That was a song from the 90s. We are The Pouch. We are a news and politics podcast
that occasionally sings.
Yay! We
also have not so seriously.
Not so seriously. Jake, we're live on Facebook. You can ask some questions and we can bring them up. Preferably questions about our relationship with China tonight. Not about nicknames or anything like that for me. But yeah, anything that has to do with our relationship with China, anything you want to know that Jake might be able to quickly Google or discuss. Jake, the reason that we're doing this little thing, well, you know what? I'm going to do the introduction and then we'll get into it.
All right.
Okay. I just saw your little nickname. Hello and welcome to The Pouch, the 80% tariff increase of podcasts that helps the average Aussie try and make sense of their current political environment. I'm Greg. Let's just forget about this whole coronavirus thing, Savage.
I'm Jake. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's quarantine. Far Wharton. On today's episode, we talk tariffs, anti-dumping, do we? No, we talk tariffs, anti-dumping, I want to do that one more time. On today's episode, we talk anti-dumping, pro-capping, and Xi Jinping.
I love the fact that Xi Jinping is now a verb. Because we are Xi Jinping tonight, Jake. The reason that we're doing a bit of a midweek episode, the news is just in a flurry at the moment. And yes. I thought to myself...
And a fluff.
Yes, it's a flurry and a fluff.
Yep.
I thought to myself, gosh, if only there was someone I could ring and talk to about the news that's happening at the moment. If for no other reason than just to seek some clarification about what on earth is going on.
And unfortunately, Alan Jones has quit.
I know. So I couldn't call him up. He's busy, apparently.
Yeah.
Doing something else. Probably running for Prime Minister at some stage, I would say.
Ooh.
Yeah. But so, I thought, well, let's do a midweek podcast. Let's try and get our head around what's happening at the moment. So basically, the format for tonight will be me asking a lot of questions because I don't... know a great deal, and I also worked all day, so Jake was doing the bit of the podcast. And
I worked all day too, buddy.
All right, well, Jake gets home an earlier hour than me anyway. So he had time to have a look up at some things. So it's basically me trying to learn a little bit about our relationship with China, trying to learn about what's happening at the moment. I feel terrible. I feel terrible for farmers, for barley growers, for myself, for not knowing these things. So we're going to try and jump into it. The first... article is about the Guess Who Wants an Inquiry Now. And so my understanding of this, without reading the script, without having a look at the script, my understanding so far is that Australia was sort of at the forefront of putting in this this inquiry about where coronavirus came from. We put the inquiry into the UN, who is the head of the WHO. How am I doing so far?
I mean, mostly good. I can't refute you.
Okay, good. That's a good start. So we've put in these. We put in this request for an inquiry.
Yep.
China didn't like that too much. They decided that they were going to stop imports from 3 of our abattoirs, which didn't put a smile on anybody's face except for China's. They won't return the minister's calls. He's trying to call quite regularly, and apparently they can't even get a line to him. We've all towed the party line for China and said that this was all about workplace health and safety. Then today, two very odd things happened. The first odd thing that happened was that China said that they're all okay with the inquiry. They would, in fact, welcome the inquiry. And I presume that's what this is about. And then they decided they were going to whack 80% tariffs on our barley exports.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the first part.
So, yes, China's president today, Xi Jinping, said that his country would support a, quote, comprehensive review of the COVID-19 pandemic after the outbreak has been brought under control. China, of course, as you alluded, reacted furiously to Australia's early call for an independent investigation, retaliating by reinvigorating months-old trade disputes. And the Australian government has claimed the resolution for this investigation as an absolute victory. So essentially, as you know, diplomatic tensions were expected to dominate the World Health Assembly, which is the governing body of the World Health Organization, which began its 2-day meeting earlier this week.
Right. So this is the UN. This is something that I didn't know until the other day, right? That the UN, and this is me just admitting to my faults as a human being. I didn't know that the United Nations was sort of the governing body of the World Health Organization. So who's meeting at the moment?
So it's the World Health Assembly, which is essentially the governing body of the World Health Organization.
Right. Okay, so it goes the United Nations, World Health Assembly, the WA.
Yeah.
Less catchy.
WA.
And then the WHO.
Yeah.
So the WA, and then so the WA.
Who's
and the
on
WHO.
fourth?
Yes.
Who's on third? Anyway.
All right, so they're meeting. They've met early.
Yes, and it's thanks to, I suppose, the European Union, who joined with Australia in calling for an inquiry.
Yes.
Over 120 countries have now backed the draft resolution that we co-sponsored with them.
I thought it was 60. Yesterday morning it was 60.
Doubled.
Now it's doubled.
It's doubled. The 60 may actually refer to the 60, off the top of my head, there are 60-odd developing nations who are not part of the World Health Assembly.
Yeah, right.
That may have been that figure of 60. The interesting thing, of course, about the inquiry that has been drafted is that China's name is not at all mentioned.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
And
it doesn't mention the word China or coronavirus.
It mentions coronavirus once or 7,000 times.
I was just seeing if you were listening.
But in a statement to the World Health Assembly, the Australian Health Minister, Greg Hunt, said that he was pleased that there was support for an impartial, independent and comprehensive evaluation of the global response. And as I said, the Australian government broadly claimed the resolution as a victory. The Chinese embassy in China, however, says that the World Health Assembly COVID inquiry motion, which China is backing, is, quote, totally different to the Morrison government's original call for an independent investigation. It says for Australia to claim vindication is, quote, nothing but a joke.
Yeah. Well, the thing that gets to me is the fact that you've got countries like America who have cut off countries like the US who have cut off funding to the WHO. So they're celebrating the fact that they don't even care about what, the WHO, and they don't care what they have to say. They, in fact, think they're probably, I would say, corrupt. So why would we put our stock in them doing an impartial review? I mean, is this just wishy-washy nonsense, Jake?
Well, I mean, the World Health Organization, the thing is that the claims made by America were largely unfounded and, lacking in any real evidence. Those claims of...
doesn't sound like anybody I know.
Doesn't sound like the President of the United States to make a claim without evidence. Unfortunately, it was lacking, any real alignment with reality. And so the claims of, corruption, the claims of, it being too close, the WHO being too close to China.
But we did
on a
have that,
diplomatic
didn't we?
basis.
We did have that interview with that character who decided that he was going to end the interview quickly because they were asking about Taiwan, I think. That was about,
it was. Essentially, there were those questions. The World Health official was asked questions around, if you were in Taiwan, if you were in Taipei, and you got coronavirus, where would you want to be treated?
Oh no, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, it's an unfair question because the WHO is and always has been apolitical. Like it was an organization that was set up after World War II to coordinate health efforts. It's not it is meant to be a deeply apolitical organization, and as a consequence, and I should say also it is partially funded by a number of developed nations.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely the definition of an impartial organization. There's no real reason to suspect that it is too close.
But there would be people out there, obviously, who would be fuming, who would be foaming at the mouth at the moment.
Yep.
The fact that we're even remotely entertaining the idea of taking the WHO seriously, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there who think this is just absolutely crazy that we're even investing so much into this. I don't. I don't know. Do we know how much Australia gives to the WHO, or shall I continue Googling it?
Yeah, continue Googling it. My guess, Greg, if you end up getting it, is around, I would say, 5% of the WHO's budget.
5%. I don't know. You've got to be very specific about what you're Googling here. Anyway, you carry on. So we've got. I will get to this now. We do have a question here from Elise Rogers. Beck and I need to know, how close is too close? I'm going to bring your comment up there on the screen. How close is too close, Jake? Are we too close to China?
Well,
can we smell
China.
the Chinese, food? Are we too close? I was going to say breath, but I don't know.
I mean, I'm not really one to answer that question. I have anosmia, which means I have no sense of smell. So, I mean, they could be right up inside my nostrils. This is not about you, Jake,
and your weird medical issues.
You asked me the question, are we too close to China? And can I smell them?
It's a metaphor.
My frame of reference is, okay. Well, on that basis, look, the funny thing is, we are one of the only countries that has a trade surplus with China. One of the only countries that has a trade surplus with China. And as a consequence, we properly value the economic relationship that we have with them. Now, in saying that, the last couple of weeks, the fact that we've been asking questions again, and I've said this a few times, we asked the questions about the requirement for this inquiry. We asked them in the most reprehensible way, essentially saying, that really intelligent orange guy in the White House, we should totally back him and everything that he says. The way that we went about asking for an inquiry by saying, hey, see what Donald Trump said, what he said, let's just do that. That was inappropriate. It's not a way to run international diplomacy, particularly considering it was doorstop diplomacy. It's sort of, let's have a chat with the media and let's get all our thoughts out into the open. What it should have been is what it is now, which is a resolution at the World Health Assembly. It should have been a discussion between countries, handled diplomatically so that we actually get the answer that we need, which is how did this happen and how did it spread?
That's kind of what they're doing now.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we are now a casualty of what we've said.
Yes.
So we are now.
That is true.
As a consequence, I mean, this is the consequence of being, silly in diplomacy, because China treats diplomacy very, very seriously. Now, I'm not saying that we should absolutely kowtow to China. Ultimately, we are.
No one wants to
kowtow,
Jake.
Exactly. Well, some people do, but not us. But no, the reality is that we are a country. We are a country. That is the reality. But
plow through it.
To continue, we are a country. We have our cultural imperatives. We have our trade and economic imperatives, and ultimately we treat our own freedoms in approaching trade. We hold them pretty high. So.
Yep.
When a country tries to undertake the type of like terrorist diplomacy, essentially, hey, we will crush your economy if you don't do what we say politically.
Yeah.
Obviously the reaction to that is going to be negative, and so in answer to the original question, are we too close to China? I think right now we've got them at arm's length. They are holding a sword, and we are holding a very, very short, small knife, and we're about to go into battle, and it is not going to go so well for us. But the last thing that we would want to do is to bow down to that pressure, because all that will happen is when, we can't give in, essentially. Unfortunately, now we've put ourselves in this situation. We can't give in, because all that's going to happen is next time we have a trade dispute, they will know exactly what buttons to push.
All right,
and they will push them.
Okay, so it's a power struggle, right? That's what. Okay, now I've got the figure up here for how much Australia spends yearly on who. So you want to whack a dollar figure to it?
Yeah.
This is according to the Daily Mail. What do you think? Can you guess?
I'm going to say 500 million.
Jeez, Jake, that's a lot. That's a lot.
So 80 million?
Yeah, that's a better that's a better figure. I'll edit the 500 million out of the original out of the actual podcast. What? Just kidding. How? Who do they think they are? I get it. That's a funny headline, isn't it? I reckon I could do that job. How Australia's $63 million yearly spend on the World Health Organization is almost twice as much as China's, but they spend their time sucking up to the communist regime. That's right. It's all about power. This is the fascinating thing about it, isn't it? They're bullies, right? They can walk around the world bullying whoever they want because they have the power. So we can give them twice as much as what China does. Obviously, China gives them half of 63 million, right? And I just don't know if that's an Australian or Chinese.
I would be very careful about trusting anything that the Daily Mail says.
Well, it's the Daily Mail Australia.
No, it doesn't matter.
I mean, surely that's not a number that can just be... Look, they've got a graph, Jake. They have a graph.
Yeah, I think the number is probably trustworthy.
I might even be able to bring it up onto the screen if I'm smart
maybe
enough.
Not for
the
China.
world donations to who, right? $436.8 million from the US, $318 million from the UK, $240.5 million from others. No, from Germany. $134 million from Japan. Well, I mean, we're not even in we're like 8th. $54.4 million. See, it's already changed from the...
I mean, when you compare the populations of those countries with us, that's pretty staggering.
Yeah.
I'd say probably per capita basis, we're among the top.
Well, China is 21st, 9.8 million.
1.34 billion people in China.
Yeah, I don't know how their maths works because they did say half and they only give 9.8 million. Maybe you're right, but the article can't be that bad. Anyway, I must be missing something. But we give about $63 million. That's in Australian dollars. We did that in 2018.
Yep.
So that's pretty mad.
It's pretty mad. But do you want to go on to the next story around barley and beef? Let's stay with this one. Look,
Elise says thank you for the medical vocabulary. Everyone's Googling things. Oh, what's the word we have to use? We have to use the word...
zoonosis.
Zoonoic.
Yeah,
the zoonoic... what is it? Like the zoonoic...
virus.
Virus. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That means...
So,
go.
Zoonosis is the term that you relate to a virus or a thing that goes from an animal to a human, or actually it's any animal to another animal. But in the case of coronavirus, it's from animals to humans.
Yeah, zoonosis.
Not that humans aren't animals. We are. Is that controversial? It's
controversial. But that's what we do here, Jake.
Yeah.
We're hard hitting.
We only
We're
speak.
filling the gap that
We only speak.
that Alan Jones left. Now,
Somebody has to.
yep. Now, I had about 54 inappropriate jokes go through my head then about the shape of the gap that he left. Now, we
Is it chaff bag shaped?
okay, so then we wake up this morning, and actually, it was last night. It was last
Simon
night because being
had frowns in his forehead.
being a school teacher, I was glued to the television last night as the return to school for New South Wales unravelled. But we're not here to talk about that. So then down the bottom, the little ticker said that China has decided to put an 80%, which sounds like a lot, 80% tariff on barley.
Yeah.
Now, did you find out how much barley we actually export to China?
Yes.
Tell me, in metric tons.
I don't know. The one question I didn't
What
look
is
up,
this, Jake? Hey, you had a whole hour.
I didn't look up.
All right, well, you talk a little bit and I'll find out what's happening with the barley in Australia. I'll find out how much barley we...
Well, as you say, China has put punitive tariffs, I love that term, punitive tariffs on more than 80%. Of more than 80%. China has put punitive tariffs of more than 80% on barley imports from Australia. The Trade Minister, Simon Birmingham, indicated that Australia may appear the imposition of a 73.6 anti-dumping tariff and a 6.9 anti-subsidy tariff applied to all Australian barley from this week. Simon Birmingham spoke and said, quote, Australia is deeply disappointed with China's decision to impose duties on Australian barley.
Yes, I can imagine that was a bit disappointing.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of Team America. You know, we're gonna write a strongly worded letter telling you how angry we are.
America.
Yeah. So this is not great news, right? Now, I heard I think it was the trade minister or one of the spokespeople on the news last night, and they were saying that it doesn't really matter. Australia's got options. Does Australia have options, Jake? And if so why aren't we growing hemp?
We've got options, and this is a very nuanced subject. Simon Birmingham, along with a number of federal cabinet ministers, have been speaking in the last week, particularly during the escalation of I suppose this tension with China. They've been speaking a lot about trying to diversify the countries that Australia currently exports its various things to.
Yes.
And that, sure, that makes sense on the face of it. Okay. But does that mean that our very intelligent farmers and exporters and intermediaries have not already gone to those countries and have not already set up exports with those? It seems to me a little bit strange that we would look to diversify during a crisis. I mean, it sounds great.
Yeah. But if they're not getting the money for it, they're going to have to already done it. Yeah, that's right. If they're not getting the money for it, though, they're going to have to figure something out, aren't they?
I am reasonably certain that our farmers, that our export intermediaries have already, they've made our sales as diverse as they possibly can. We have a lot of eggs in China's basket. That's, let's say that up front.
All of them.
A large number of them.
Well, we are... Okay, so I've got a couple of facts here just before you go on. I've got a couple of facts. Australia's barley exports to China were worth $600 million in 2019. So I don't have an answer in tons, but certainly in the dollar figures of $600 million in 2019. It does say farmers are looking to diversify, and it says that it's raised fears that the dispute could expand to other sectors as well.
Yeah, it's possible. And actually,
that's from the Innisfail Advocate. No, it's from from ABC News. That one, yeah.
Good old Innisfail. But the interesting thing here is about 18 months ago, China raised a trade dispute, particularly around this premise of anti-dumping with Australia, specifically around steel. The iron ore prices and steel sales. So the idea of anti-dumping, and it's a premise I had to look up myself because I had absolutely no idea. It makes a lot of sense, but essentially many countries have this thing called an anti-dumping stance on imports due to essentially its anti-competitive nature. So anti-dumping duties are what they referred to as protectionist tax or protectionist tariff that a government imposes on foreign imports that it believes are priced below the fair market value. And the reason why it's anti-competitive is essentially dumping is a process where a company exports a product below that price, lower than the price that it would normally charge in its own home market.
Yeah.
And it can be doing this really to undercut international competitors. So when
okay. So I might pay more for. Are we talking barley here? Like I might pay more for barley here in Australia than what China does when the farmer exports it to them.
Correct.
Right.
And the reason we might do that is, let's say the Netherlands is the next biggest exporter of barley to, well, there you go, to China.
It says right here.
And and we undercut the Netherlands, and by doing that,
yes,
Netherlands loses their contract to sell to China,
as they should.
They have to then lay off a whole bunch of farmers, whole bunch of other people around that farming sector, and they lose that capacity to grow barley and to manufacture and make barley products, etc., in their own country.
Yeah.
And then Australia, because of that dumping, essentially, they were able to gain this competitive edge, and now they are the biggest exporter to China. And because we've crippled Netherlands, we're also to Indonesia and a whole bunch of other countries.
All right. So it says here that they're looking at Saudi Arabia as a major buyer of Australian feel. Apparently, it already is, but they're looking at maybe going a bit cheaper with Saudi Arabia. It says, here we go. Look. Australia exports about 730,000 tons. Nope.
That's a reasonable amount.
730,000 tons. Not even a million. 730,000 tons of malted barley each year, mainly to countries in Asia for brewing, beer. So there you go. Australian barley is in all the overseas beers, particularly Asian ones. So 730,000 tons.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a
How does it get to
amount.
China? Just by one of those ships?
Boats. Yeah, boats.
Yeah.
Big barges. They fill up the internals of the thing, and then they vacuum it out afterwards. With
a free trade deal due to come into force with Indonesia in July, it's possible that we could export 500,000 to 1 million tons of feedlot barley. Is that different? I don't know.
I imagine it's a different.
There's malted barley. Okay, so there's malted barley and there's feedlot barley.
Yeah.
So feedlot for animals.
Yeah.
And
for their cows and livestock.
Malted for beer for the animals.
For brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad. I feel like I'm becoming an expert in barley.
And in anti-dumping tariffs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I mean, I'm kind of happy that I got my head around that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting
because
that's what this relates to, because this is a 16-month long investigation that has apparently occurred, and this I suppose is what complicates things, because this investigation that has been conducted by China, again, it's 16 months long and it's coming to fruition now. So either it's completely coincidental that this happens to line up with Australia, raising these issues with the World Health Organization and World Health Assembly.
Yes.
Or they had this in their back pocket for a particular time when they might be able to screw Australia, and it's come out, in their favor.
It's just terrible, isn't it? Like it's such a inhumane thing to do, isn't it? To just not even care about the livelihoods that this is going to affect, it's collateral damage, isn't it? And it's not like the people who made the decision to go and create the investigation are the ones who are suffering. Like, it's now our farmers who are suffering.
This is a trade negotiation. Like, why would China, who could not care less about
Liam Neeson?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. But China doesn't care about the individual Australian farmer. They probably care about our capacity to deliver on things. But they are taking care of 1.34 billion people.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. Like that's a massive marketplace to think about. So one of the people that you buy stuff off has been really annoying at the moment. So you decide to inject a bit of heat.
I don't want to. Yeah. It
Pop
says
some
here
corn.
that Western Australian
Barley.
Western Australian Agriculture and Food Minister Alana McTiernan said while she was confident Australian barley was neither being dumped, I know what that means now. How cool is that? Nor subsidised, the tariffs would cost growers. The decision could see a direct loss of up to $200 million to Western Australian farm incomes this year from reduced barley values and reduced wheat prices as more farmers turn to wheat crops. Of course. Okay, that's interesting, right? So they're going to go to wheat, which will decrease the... it will decrease the... What will it do? It will increase the amount of wheat that we have, which will lower the price.
Potentially.
Great.
Lower the price.
So now the wheat. So now I've got to learn about wheat.
Just another grain that I can't eat.
And how we relate Jake's medical issues to each story. All right. So that's okay. So this is all very fascinating. All right. Now, one of the things that's been happening, Jake, is that we're now talking about an exit strategy. You've got countries like America who are opening up, again, particularly the Republican states, they're the ones opening up. And we're starting to see, based on the reports that I've seen, that there's actually not that big of a shake-up when that happens. There's not that big of a spike, so there's a bit of evidence to suggest that maybe, opening up again isn't all that bad. But one of the things which we're sort of talking about on our exit strategy is about what we move to, and particularly the climate, and particularly moving towards a greener future. And you've got a story here, which is the Morrison government has promised new measures even to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, including introducing an incentive scheme. Ooh. To allow,
very exciting.
To allow big industrial polluters. This wasn't meant to go on for so long. Who's trying to keep a lid on the cap? Who's trying to keep a lid cap on the climate? Jake, tell us.
Well, I was trying to make a pun there because when you're trying to put a lid on something, but it's a cap. Because
trying to keep a lid cap.
Anyway.
Trying to keep a lid cap on the climate.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
I tried really hard.
So we've got some incentive schemes.
We do, yeah. So essentially, this is all coming out of the a review that was headed by the former Business Council of Australia President Grant King.
I do love Grant King.
Yeah, he's an interesting gentleman. But essentially, the review was to look at new opportunities to cut emissions across the industrial, manufacturing, transport, and agricultural sectors.
No pressure.
Without trying to impose too much of a cost.
Yep.
So, we want to do it as cheaply as humanly possible, and we want to do it without crippling, certain industries that may start with C and end with OL.
Cabal?
Yeah. Cabal. Yes. So essentially what the report has found is that we have this, $2.55 billion fund, which is available to essentially do these types of, big things, and they're essentially big things related to the. I'm trying to speak every man here, Greg.
Well, I can keep up so far. We've got some money to do things.
Well, what they're essentially saying is they want to allow companies to capture carbon, to store carbon, and to build this fund as part of this as part of the program.
Yep.
And I should also say that in a shift that will likely be criticised by clean energy advocates down the road. The government gave in principle support for two agencies, which is the Australian Renewables Energy Agency and the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, to be given a technology neutral remit to support the widest possible range of technologies that reduce emissions. And that's in line with that whole premise that Scott Morrison set out soon after the election last year, that we are going to reduce emissions with technology, not taxes.
Yes. And one of my new favorite people, Jake, his name is Adam Creighton, and he is the economics editor in The Australian. I saw him on television last night. He's my new favorite person. He was on there, and he was saying that the only way really forward with this is with nuclear energy. How do we feel about that? I feel good.
I mean, I'm to be frank, I'm pretty neutral about it. It's not, Australia has looked into nuclear in the past, and we found it to be not viable.
Okay.
Financially, essentially,
but don't we have enough?
There's lots.
Like we've got a lot
of reasons to do it.
All right.
And as you were saying there before I so rudely interrupted you, like we have heaps of uranium here.
Yes.
We have heaps of thorium.
I have some right now.
Lots of other options. Exactly. I'm chewing on a bit of yellow cake right now.
No, that's barley, Jake.
Barley means bloat, Greg. It's. I mean, I'm not against it. I know. There are various Nationals ministers that are heavily in favour of it.
Yeah.
But I personally, whatever the evidence says is feasible, viable, and is in line with our long-term strategic goals of emissions reductions.
Yeah.
That it seems to me that would be the most appropriate route to go down. If that includes nuclear, no problem.
All right. I like that. I'm going to get that on a T-shirt for you. Nuclear, no problem. It's very good.
It aligns with best evidence and strategic policy. I'm all on board.
Yeah. Okay. So, why would this be criticised by the clean energy advocates?
Well, I suppose
not the
Greens, the Greens, this fund, or the use of this fund for these types of things. But the Greens have previously accused the government of planning changes to the CEFC, the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, to allow it to fund more fossil fuel projects.
Yeah.
And allow it to, do things like fund transport for coal, fund transport for fuel exports or imports, or driving that around the country. So it is unfortunately, and I know we have a few of these, it is a bit of a watch this space type of thing. What we know now is that the government has accepted a large number of the recommendations that were put out in this report.
Yes.
And that they
sounds
will
like something they would do.
Exactly. They will likely implement a lot of those recommendations pretty soon, allowing people from across industrial, again, manufacturing, transport and agricultural sectors to start drawing down on that fund to store and capture carbon.
All right. Well, you know what they say, got to catch them all, Jake. Got to catch them all.
That's my motto. Pokemon.
Now, we're going to end on a bit of a light-hearted one here, Jake. We're going to end on a story that has to do with Australians not knowing stuff, and I'm one of those Australians, Jake. I don't know very much stuff, I don't claim to know much stuff. That's why we do the podcast, so that I can have an opportunity to sit down.
We can all learn together.
We can all learn together. That's right. Now, I don't. If you asked me what is it, the difference between a bacteria and a virus? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think the difference is?
Well, I would say that bacteria causes a virus. That's what I. I mean, that's what I would say if I didn't know what I was talking about. I would say no. Okay, so a virus is just a virus, right? And a virus just causes the virus. So a bacteria would be little things that live on your eyes, and they're just like little things, and they can be good and bad. Whereas all viruses are bad. Yeah. That's true.
Well, they can be. They certainly can be.
No, but
I mean, a lot of
bad,
viruses are neutral, because we can't. There's plenty of viruses that are around that we can't catch that don't have the ability to infect humans. But yes,
I don't know.
this all comes.
I don't know. All my failings in high school science are now coming to fruition.
Well, ostensibly, Greg,
I'm getting very uncomfortable. I can't even sit still.
Ostensibly, your latter answer was entirely correct, but it does come.
My real answer.
Yes. The interesting thing here is that it comes as the CSIRO have announced that a whopping 92% of Australians don't know the difference between a viral infection and a bacterial one. And that is, of course, interesting because we are 4 months into this global pandemic, and, you can't not be saturated by COVID, which, the COVID-19 or coronavirus, novel coronavirus, is a virus. And it is, it's in the name, right? Coronavirus.
All right. Well, Jake, 92% of Australians actually listen to the Pouch the podcast.
I've heard that.
So maybe we can bring that percentage down dramatically.
Yes, dramatically.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
But the really important thing here is with so many people believing that essentially viruses and bacteria are much the same thing.
Yeah.
When they go to a doctor, when they go to a GP and they say, "Hey, I've got I'm feeling a little bit crook. I've got the flu. I've got a cold.
Yeah.
I've got a sore and scratchy throat." They will quite often couple that with, "Hey, I probably just need some antibiotics. Can I please have some antibiotics? I need some antibiotics.
Right.
Can you please just give me some goddamn antibiotics?
So
I need antibiotics. I need to go back to work. I need antibiotics."
All right, what's the difference, Jake? I'm dying here.
Well, viruses essentially cannot be cured by. The difference between bacteria and viruses is, they're worlds apart. One is a virus and one is a bacteria, but they are entirely separate.
What are the differences?
As it pertains to this,
you don't know either, do you? You don't know.
Yeah.
You work in the medical industry and you don't even know.
Replicating bacteria replicates through reproduction. There we go. I did it.
A bacteria replicates through reproduction.
Yep.
What? They make out.
Yeah. A lot.
Do they?
Yeah.
So I have to have two bacteria to have another bacteria.
They
a mummy bacteria?
I'm screwing this up. I don't know. I don't know. It's
I
been
know.
far too long.
Okay. So you don't even know.
I couldn't even describe the difference. Just Google it.
This is terrible.
Oh, I love it. No, the reason why this is important, yeah, right, it is terrible. But the reason why it's important is
the whole bit was that you were meant to educate me about what the difference was.
I know. I put it together at the end of the day. I should have spent more time. What is the difference between a virus and bacteria?
Yeah. All right. So is it? What did you say about the way they look? It comes up as soon as you put in the word difference into Google. It comes up. Viruses are smaller than bacteria and can't survive without a living host.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Is it?
No.
A virus attaches itself to cells and usually reprograms them to reproduce itself.
Yeah.
Also, unlike bacteria, most viruses do cause disease. See? Told you they were bad. All of them.
All of them.
Some virus-caused diseases include the common cold, AIDS, herpes, and chickenpox.
Yeah. So I can tell you what all of those viruses are.
Yes.
I can't tell you the difference between them.
Yes.
Between that and bacteria.
Yeah. I wonder why we use the word virus like a you don't say I have a bacteria, but you can say I have a virus.
You could say I have multi-resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
Yeah, of course. I'm saying that now, but I don't. But I don't know. I don't know. You don't say I have a bacteria. You say I have a bacterial infection, but you can say I have a virus.
All that means is that you have a particular type of bacteria in a particular place on your body that is, rapidly reproducing out of control in a way that your body's internal, ability to fight that infection has been impaired.
Well, they can actually, it says here that they can cause similar symptoms such as coughing, sneezing, fever, inflammation, vomiting, diarrhea, and fatigue. So no wonder we're all confused and cramping. Yeah. It says, although bacteria and viruses are both too small to be seen without a microscope, they're as different as giraffes and goldfish. Bacteria are relatively complex, single-celled creatures with many with many with a rigid wall and a thin rubbery membrane surrounding the fluid inside the cell. They can reproduce on their own. Yes. Fossilized records show that bacteria have existed for about 3.5 billion years, and bacteria can survive in different environments, including extreme heat and cold, radioactive waste, and the human body. Most bacteria are harmless, and some actually help. Yeah, we know that. I know that. Even I know that.
Billions on your eyelash. Well, delete all this. This was boring.
Was it? That's the big question. Am I going to keep this in, Jake?
I got a better story for you.
Go.
It seems that a group in the Northern Territory. You heard this story, surely?
What?
We were discussing it earlier.
What is it?
A business lobby group has made a controversial call to reopen Uluru.
Ah, yes.
To help kickstart Northern. Is that enough of a bribe?
So this is not happening. This is just a call. It's a call
out. Yes. Yeah, so they're essentially using this as a way to kickstart Northern Territory's tourism industry. The climb, of course, was permanently and somewhat controversially closed. In October last year. Yeah, very publicly at the request of the traditional owners. But there has been talk of a, quote, grand reopening of the climb, said Dave Battick, the chairman of the Alice Springs Major Business Group and general manager of Alice Springs Airport. He said bold thinking was needed to rebuild tourism even, when Northern Territory borders are reopened, possibly by August. Interestingly enough, he said there are 3 iconic destinations in Australia that we talk about. What are those 3, Greg?
Iconic destinations?
Yeah.
The bridge?
The bridge, yeah.
Uluru. The Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Okay, yep.
Uluru. And the Great Barrier Reef.
You've got 2 of them.
Come on.
The Great Barrier Reef, you got?
Yeah.
The Rock, you got?
Yeah.
Uluru.
Are these natural?
And Sydney Opera House. Yeah. Sydney Opera House, very natural.
All right, okay.
Natural
occurrence.
Yeah.
Isn't it wild how that formed over millions of years?
Billions, some might say.
I just can't even fathom it.
I know.
It's all the ferries going past, just gradually...
Yeah. Eroding
to that rock into that shape, because they just follow that specific path around the. It's crazy.
Totally counterintuitive shape, but that's nature for you.
It is. That's nature for you, Jake. I mean,
infinite
look, you can't.
Infinite possibilities.
You can't question nature.
Yeah, I mean, you could try. It may not respond though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it works in mysterious ways.
It certainly does. You know what else works in mysterious ways?
Yes,
Uluru.
Yes,
Uluru. Works in very mysterious ways.
Okay. Is it?
Well, not... Yeah. I'm done.
And thank you so much for listening to our China special today.
No joke.
On the pouch. It was a very interesting discussion. I think we might edit that down to be a China special, Jake.
A China special, you say?
Then that way we might be able to knock off about 20 minutes of conversation. And we'll revisit. I think we can revisit particularly the bacteria and virus conversation next episode.
Yes.
What do you think?
Once
I think so.
Bloody researched it,
yeah. Look,
do your research, Jake.
Yeah, no one can expect miracles, Jake, when you work full time like we do, and run a podcast and have families.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't expect miracles.
No, you can demand them though.
Yes,
and
you can give us money to make them happen. All right. Well, thank you so much for this little conversation about China, Jake. Absolutely terrific to be able to give you a call and have a chat about what's happening at the moment. I think it's great that we got this conversation sort of happening now, because obviously during the week there's going to be more unfolding and we won't have to spend as long catching ourselves up next episode, which will be good. We can appear like experts, like Chinese experts.
Exactly. Mind you, it could just be that tomorrow brings whole new news of brand new crises or massive changes.
Absolutely.
Tariffs are gone, et cetera, et cetera. The way the news cycle works and the way that intimidation works, it may just be that Australia blinks or China blinks and one of us ends up better.
Now, Jake, before you go, I just want to know next week's show, on Sunday's show, I would really like it if you could explain to me the difference between a bacteria and a virus. I wonder if that we might be able to have a little discussion about that, because it's something that's been playing on my mind, I'm
happy to do it. It's actually topical, Greg, because it actually seems the CSIRO have performed a study, and they have a staggering percentage of Australians who don't know the difference.
400% of Australians.
That is a percentage.
400% of Australians have no idea about the difference between a bacteria and a virus.
And barley.
Yeah. Well, they do now.
They don't know the difference between wheat and barley. It's ridiculous. But yes, we
should go out in the street and just put a microphone in front of people and go, explain the difference between a virus and bacteria. Go.
Yeah,
and explain the difference between barley and wheat. Go.
Yeah. Do it now.
Anyway, if I was allowed to be near anyone, not in a legal sense, just in a coronavirus sense, then I would do that, Jake. I'd do that for us. Jake, thank you so much for chatting with me today, and I look forward to speaking to you again on Sunday.
Yes.
The day of the sun.
The day of the sun.
Done.